So, how would you react if I told you that the sheer velocity of the technological advancement we're living through right now, the quantum computing breakthroughs, the AI models, the decentralized energy grids, what if all of that isn't just some random linear progression of human cleverness?
Right, like it's not just us slowly getting smarter over time.
Exactly. What if instead you and I are actually navigating a highly specific pre-scheduled transition phase within a massive 24,000 year cyclical spiritual awakening?
It's a staggering thought.
It really is. And welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are exploring this incredibly dense, heavily researched analytical document simply titled Paradigm Shift of Human Civilization.
And it is dense. It covers a lot of ground.
Oh, absolutely. So, our mission today is to decode this massive multimillennial timeline for you. We are going to objectively unpack the claims in this research, which synthesizes the ancient Hindu Yuga cycles with cutting edge 2025 and 2026 post materialistic science, quantum physics, and even evolutionary predictions stretching all the way to the year 12,500 AD.
We'll be looking at how everything from quantum teleportation to ancient anomalous archaeology might actually fit perfectly into a repeating cycle of human consciousness.
Yeah, and most importantly, we really want to figure out what this paradigm shift means for your immediate future. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the cosmic clockwork itself.
The foundational framework.
Right. The document bases everything on Swami Sri Yukteswar's 24,000 year Yuga cycle. And right out of the gate, the astronomical premise here completely challenges our standard model. It suggests that our sun doesn't just travel alone through the galaxy, but actually orbits a dual star.
Yes, which is the profound departure from standard cosmological models.
Yeah.
To provide some analytical context here, the research explained that this 24,000-year binary orbit with a companion star is what actually causes the observable astronomical phenomenon known as the precession of the equinoxes.
Right, which is basically the Earth wobbling on its axis.
Exactly. Now, modern astronomy typically estimates this precession period for roughly 25,700 to 26,000 years. However, the source document highlights a really crucial detail from the Binary Research Institute, and that is that the rate of this precession is not constant.
Meaning the speed of the wobble changes over time.
Precisely. And that variance strongly suggests our solar system is moving in a highly elliptical orbit alongside this dual star rather than a perfect circle.
Okay, so it's an oval.
Right. But here is the core premise of the whole document. This elliptical orbit is the actual engine of human evolution. As our solar system moves along this path, it periodically approaches a cosmic center.
Which the ancient texts call Vishnu-Navi, right? The seat of creative force.
Yes, and the closer our solar system gets to this center, the more we are bathed in increasing universal magnetism. This magnetism directly acts upon what the framework calls dharma.
And in this specific context, Dharma translates to humanity's mental capacity, our innate consciousness, and our ability to comprehend the underlying truths of the universe.
Exactly, it's an environmental trigger for consciousness.
So we can almost think of this 24,000 year cycle like a single cosmic year, complete with cosmic seasons. Depending on where we are in that orbit, humanity goes through four distinct ages, or yugas, representing different baseline levels of this dharma.
The four seasons of the mind, essentially.
Yeah, you have the winter of the cycle, the Kali Yuga, that's the material or dark age, lasting 1,200 years.
Right.
Then comes the spring, the Dwapara Yuga, the energy or electrical age, which is 2,400 years. Following that is the summer, the Treta Yuga, the mental or magnetic age, lasting 3,600 years.
And then the peak.
Exactly, the absolute peak of human consciousness, the Satya Yuga, the spiritual age, which lasts for 4,800 years.
And placing ourselves on that timeline is where things get highly relevant for the listener. According to the analysis, the lowest point of human ignorance, the dead of winter, the absolute bottom of the Kali Yuga, ended around 500 AD.
So the literal dark ages.
Literally. We then moved through a gradual multi-century transition phase. And the text notes that since 1900 AD, humanity has been fully plunged into the Dwapara Yuga. We are currently on the ascending arc.
Which aligns perfectly with the Industrial Revolution and the sudden explosion of electricity.
It really does. The Kali Yuga was characterized by a passive endurance of fate and a purely materialistic growth matter understanding of reality.
Basically, if you couldn't hit it with a hammer, it didn't exist.
Exactly. But the Dwapara Yuga, our current age, is defined by the sudden, widespread human capacity to comprehend fine material and electrical forces. We are no longer passive. We're actively manipulating the invisible forces of our environment.
Right.
And the primary defining characteristic of the Dwapara Yuga is the overcoming of the barrier of space.
And this relates so directly to how you live your life today. Overcoming space is essentially the mission statement of modern technology. The document connects this ancient framework to literal hard science happening right now in 2025 and 2026.
It draws a very direct line.
Yeah. For example, looking at quantum technology, the text details a massive 2025 breakthrough at the University of Stuttgart. Scientists successfully teleported quantum information between spatially separated photons using something called quantum dots.
Which, to break that down simply, means they took the fundamental state of one particle and perfectly transferred it to another particle a physical distance away, instantly.
Without moving the physical particle itself, it's the foundational technology for a future quantum internet. We are literally breaking down the concept of space as an insurmountable physical barrier and redefining it as an energetic continuum. The distance between point A and point B suddenly matters much less.
And this energetic revolution extends directly to how we power our civilization. The source lists highly specific trends happening right now that perfectly align with this yuga's focus on fine electrical forces.
Like what?
Well, we're looking at a massive boom in wireless power transfer market that hit $17 billion by 2025. This is heavily focused on inductive coupling.
Let's clarify that term for a second. Inductive coupling is essentially what happens when you set your smartphone on a wireless charging pad, right? Magnetic fields transferring energy without wires.
Yes.
But they're scaling that up.
Precisely. Scaling it up to industrial levels and even pushing into the early stages of space-based solar power, literally beaming energy down to Earth.
Wow.
Alongside that, we're seeing real, tangible breakthroughs in nuclear fusion from companies like Zap Energy and Helion. We are moving toward a reality of near-limitless clean energy.
And battery tech is catching up too.
Right. Solid-state batteries are achieving commercial scale right now with 2 to 3 times the energy density of previous lithium-ion tech.
I want to pause on that because the societal implication is huge. If you have a battery that holds 3 times the power and you have affordable solar or fusion energy, you completely sever your reliance on a centralized power grid.
You're talking about totally decentralized, self-sufficient households.
Exactly.
You couple that physical decentralization with AI grid management systems, which are currently optimizing power distribution in real time, and cutting line losses by an astonishing 30%. And you have a society that fundamentally operates differently. Power is no longer scarce, and it's no longer centralized.
Yeah, that changes everything.
What's fascinating here is that, according to this framework, all of this magnificent technology is merely a set of training wheels.
Wait, training wheels?
Yes. The second order of understanding in this text suggests that our gadgets, our quantum networks, our fusion reactors, they are just temporary physical aids.
Temporary.
Yes. They exist to prepare human consciousness for the innate energetic forces that are already present in the universe. We're building massive machines to manipulate energy because our consciousness hasn't quite remembered how to do it naturally yet.
So we're basically tuning into a higher frequency band, but we still need the hardware to hear the music.
That is a perfect analogy.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the text doesn't stop with our current age, it shifts the timeline forward to the Treta Yuga, the mental age, which humanity is scheduled to enter around 4100 AD.
The next season.
Right. If the current Dwapara Yuga is all about overcoming the barrier of space, the Treta Yuga is about mastering mental forces and overcoming the barrier of time.
And once again, the source points to our current cutting-edge science as the foreshadowing of this coming mental age. The text highlights a breakthrough from March 2025 where researchers at UC Berkeley demonstrated an incredible neuroprosthesis.
Oh, I read about this.
This device uses artificial intelligence to decode activity in the brain's motor cortex, translating raw brain signals into naturalistic synthesized speech with a latency of under 1 second.
Latency just meaning the delay between the thought and the computer speaking the words out loud.
Yeah.
And under 1 second is basically a real-time conversation.
Exactly. Parallel to that, the National Science Foundation, the NSF, recently awarded a $600,000 grant specifically to explore the potential of bidirectional brain-to-brain, or B2B, communication.
Mind-to-mind communication.
Yes, the explicit goal of this research is to allow individuals to exchange information directly from mind to mind, bypassing spoken language or physical gestures entirely.
So we are actively funding and building the technological precursors to telepathy.
We are.
But I have to push back here on the societal impact because the document's predictions are staggering. It argues that if telepathy becomes the norm, whether through tech now or naturally in the Treta Yuga, deception becomes fundamentally impossible.
Right.
You cannot lie if your mind is an open book. And the text argues this leads to the complete end of traditional representative democracy.
It is a logical progression if you accept the premise.
Hmm.
Why vote for a politician who might be hiding a selfish agenda when true intentions are mathematically visible to the network?
True.
The framework envisions replacing our current system with deep, immediate consensus and collective reason.
But does the text really believe human beings are capable of that kind of harmony? It sounds a bit utopian.
Well, the document argues it's less about human nature suddenly becoming angelic and more about the architecture of society adapting to a new physical reality. If true intent is completely transparent, the entire infrastructure of trust that we currently rely on, contracts, lawyers, politicians, NDAs, all of it becomes obsolete.
Well, that makes sense.
You replace hierarchical, rules-based control with natural, intuitive alignment. You literally cannot sustain a corrupt system if the mechanics of deception no longer exist.
Okay, playing the skeptical proxy for the listener here. If this is truly a 24,000-year cycle, and humanity has supposedly achieved these incredible peaks of consciousness before, shouldn't we see proof?
The lack of conventional evidence is a major point of contention.
Right. If we were highly advanced thousands of years ago, shouldn't there be evidence of these past ages, rather than just the linear hunter-gatherer to modern man timeline we are all taught in school?
That is the most common critique of cyclical history, and the source document tackles it head-on with an objective analysis of several major archaeological anomalies. Conventional history struggles to explain these within a linear timeline, but the author posits they fit perfectly into the Yuga model.
Let's use some examples.
Let's look at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey, dated to roughly 9500 BC.
Which is incredibly old, way before agriculture or the invention of the wheel.
Exactly. The architectural complexity, the massive T-shaped pillars, and the vast organization required to build it completely defy the known capabilities of primitive hunter-gatherers.
Right.
But what's even more anomalous, according to the research, is that Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried.
Intentionally.
Yes, it wasn't covered by a landslide or natural erosion. The text suggests this massive burial project was a deliberate effort by a highly conscious society to protect a sacred energetic center from the descending, lower consciousness generations they knew were coming as the Yuga cycle moved downward into winter.
They saw the Dark Ages coming and buried their most important site. That is wild.
It is.
And then there's the Great Pyramid of Giza. The text points to engineer Christopher Dunn's Giza power plant theory. For those who aren't familiar, this theory posits that the pyramid was not a tomb for a pharaoh, but a massive piezoelectric generator.
A fascinating theory.
Piezoelectricity is essentially the process of creating an electrical charge from physical pressure or vibration, like how the quartz in a wristwatch works. The theory argues the pyramid was a giant vibrational power plant.
And the supporting evidence the text draws on is the sheer precision of the structure. We are talking about a height deviation of just 1.5 centimeters across an entire 5.3 hectare base.
That is insane precision.
The document argues that you simply cannot explain that level of absolute microscopic precision with the basic copper tools and wooden rollers attributed to that era. The builders, who the text places in the previous descending Dwapara Yuga, had fully mastered the laws of energy and resonance.
So they didn't need the brute force mechanical heavy industry that we rely on today.
No, they used advanced acoustics and energetic manipulation.
Okay, but hold on. The text also brings up the La Marche caves in France, featuring carvings dated to around 13,000 BC.
Yes.
13,000 BC. We are taught that humans were barely using refined stone tools then, maybe just figuring out basic survival. How does the text justify claiming that carvings from that era show humans in tailored clothing, wearing hats, with neatly trimmed short beards? Doesn't that contradict every mainstream historian alive?
It absolutely contradicts mainstream linear history, which is precisely the author's point. The anomaly is the subject matter of the carvings themselves.
A detailed clothing and grooming.
Yes. The document states that these depictions are physical, artistic proof that during the peak of the last Sachi Yuga, the highest point of the 24,000-year cycle, human intelligence and cultural sophistication were incredibly high.
But they lived in caves.
The text argues that highly conscious beings might choose to live in simpler, more natural external environments like caves because their focus was entirely internal and spiritual, rather than focused on building sprawling, environmentally destructive cities.
Interesting. So we have these deeply controversial breadcrumbs from the past, and we have the undeniable quantum and neurological breakthroughs of today. How does this all synthesize into our immediate future?
We need to look at the near term.
Yeah, if we step away from 13,000 BC and look at next year, the text points to the year 2026 as a massive turning point, specifically highlighting an upcoming conference called Complexity Futures: New Paradigms.
Yes, the research identifies 2026 as the explicit pivot toward what it calls post-materialistic science.
Post-materialistic.
Correct. For centuries, the dominant scientific paradigm has been strict materialism. The idea that consciousness is just a fortunate accidental byproduct of complex brain chemistry.
Right.
But that view is fundamentally failing to explain the observable realities of quantum entanglement or psychokinetic effects. To bridge this gap, the document highlights Rupert Sheldrake's theory of morphic resonance.
Let's break that down. Morphic resonance is essentially the concept that there is a collective memory in nature, right? A field of information that all systems draw from without physical connection.
Precisely. It is a non-local field of collective memory. And the text uses this to explain the phenomenon of simultaneous invention, which is rampant in our current Dwapara Yuga.
When two people invent the same thing at the same time.
Exactly. When humanity's collective dharma reaches a certain threshold, the exact same technological breakthrough will manifest in different unconnected minds across the globe simultaneously.
They aren't stealing ideas from each other.
No, everyone is simply tuning into the same energetic thought stream because the frequency of the planet has shifted.
And what's wild is there is actually empirical data cited for this collective consciousness. The document details the Global Consciousness Project 2.0, or GCP 2.0.
A very significant project.
This is a real-world, global network of random number generators computers designed to spit out purely random sequences of zeros and ones. But during events of high global emotional coherence, the data changes.
It deviates from the baseline.
Specifically, the text cites the World Sound Healing Day in February 2025. During that global event, these machines showed significant deviations from statistical randomness.
Which is a profound data point. Human collective emotion was measurably altering the behavior of isolated physical digital systems.
Which means consciousness is a real physical field.
Yes, and if it can influence matter, it changes how we organize every single aspect of our lives moving forward. Based on this, the text predicts a radical shift in human governance by the year 2050. It foresees the rise of network states and DAO 3.0.
DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. But unpack what that actually means for the listener. What does it mean to live in a network state?
It means untethering yourself from geography. As energy and computing costs plummet in the Dwapara Yuga, we will stop organizing our societies based on arbitrary lines drawn on a map.
Borders won't matter.
Exactly. Instead, you will form sovereign digital communities based entirely on shared values and ethics. These communities will be organized by code and transparent algorithmic rules on a global network.
So no more centralized governments dictating terms based on where you were born?
Imagine paying taxes not to the country you physically happen to reside in, but to a digital collective that perfectly aligns with your ethical worldview.
That's a massive paradigm shift.
These network states will have their own currencies, their own treasuries, and they will directly challenge the traditional legitimacy of the nation-state.
Which this framework views as a leftover, clunky artifact of the hierarchical Kali Yuga.
Exactly. It's an outdated model of control.
If we are proving that collective consciousness can alter digital systems, and we are decentralizing our energy and governments, it makes me wonder, what does this energetic shift mean for our physical bodies? Are we moving past traditional chemistry and medicine too?
We are. The text outlines a massive move away from gross matter treatments.
Meaning synthetic pharmaceutical chemistry and invasive physical surgery.
Yes. Instead, we are entering the era of biophotonics and frequency therapy.
Healing the body with light.
Exactly. The text specifically highlights photodynamic therapy, which uses specific, targeted wavelengths of laser light to destroy tumor cells without harming the surrounding healthy tissue.
That's incredible.
It's precise, energetic manipulation rather than chemical carpet bombing. The research also details the 2025 clinical successes of infrared photobiomodulation.
Photobiomodulation.
Right. By using targeted light to optimize mitochondrial processes within our cells, scientists are seeing significant, measurable results in pain relief and the enhancement of cognitive functions.
We are quite literally learning to heal the biological machine by directly manipulating its energetic pathways.
We are mapping the body's energy grid.
So what does this all mean?
It forces us to step back and confront the ultimate trajectory of human evolution. The text draws a very sharp, deliberate contrast between transhumanism and what it calls the spiritual singularity.
Right. In our current culture, the transhumanist view is overwhelmingly dominant.
Yes, this is the idea that we must eventually merge with machines, become cyborgs, or upload our consciousness to a server to transcend our fragile biological limits.
Right.
But through the lens of the Yuga cycles, this obsession with microminiaturized technology, neural laces, and brain implants is just a temporary phase.
It's the training wheels again.
Exactly. The ultimate goal, as we move through the Dwapara Yuga and eventually into the Treta and Satya Yugas, isn't to become a machine. The goal is to mature our innate consciousness to the point where we can shed the need for external technology entirely.
Which brings us right back to you, the listener, navigating your day-to-day life. Whether you take this 24,000-year cycle as literal astronomical truth, or simply view it as a profoundly fascinating philosophical lens, it completely reframes the modern experience of information overload.
It offers a very different perspective on progress.
Yeah, every new solid-state battery, every new AI language model, every quantum computing breakthrough isn't just another gadget designed to distract you or sell you ads. According to this paradigm, these are the necessary stepping stones of our collective cognitive evolution.
We are building the scaffolding for our own awakening.
Exactly. It challenges you to look at your smartphone today and ask a hard question. What dormant, innate human abilities might I be neglecting by outsourcing my memory, my sense of direction, and my connection to others to this piece of glass and metal?
It is a profound question.
If the universe truly is an energetic web, how much of it could you navigate with just your own mind if you practiced?
It's an invitation to view ourselves not as biological accidents desperately building clever tools to survive, but as awakening beings gradually, cyclically remembering our true capacity.
And to leave you with one final, mind-bending thought from the source research to mull over on your own. We have spent a lot of time talking about the chaotic technological transition we are in right now. But what actually happens when humanity reaches the absolute peak of this massive clockwork cycle?
The Satya Yuga.
Right. When we re-enter the Satya Yuga around the year 7700 AD, the text predicts that in this future era of pure, fully developed consciousness, the global human population will intentionally shrink down to just a few million people worldwide.
A radical demographic shift.
Yeah. But these few million individuals will live in perfect, frictionless harmony with nature. Because they have completely mastered the manipulation of life force, the document asserts that disease will be entirely defeated.
Eradicated, complete.
And the staggering result of this mastery is that humans will boast a life expectancy of up to 400 years. Just take a moment to imagine that reality. Imagine living a 4-century life, deeply connected to a small, globally aligned community, existing in a state of continuous bliss and perfect health. No power grids, no smartphones, no quantum internet, absolutely zero technology, powered purely by the boundless awakened capacity of human consciousness. It has been an absolute pleasure exploring these heavy, paradigm-shifting concepts with you today. Until next time, keep diving deep.